Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an event that literally reshaped the entire technology landscape overnight. For years, Silicon Valley operated under this really comfortable assumption. They firmly believed their dominance in AI was totally protected by these giant, impenetrable moats. Superior computing power, endless capital, and a massive head start on architecture. But as we're going to see, that illusion of dominance shattered in an instant. We're looking at a full-blown AI Sputnik moment. July 27th, 2026. Mark that down. That isn't just a random day on the calendar, it's the exact moment those trillion-dollar so-called unbeatable moats evaporated, just vanished. The global tech industry woke up to a reality where the barriers to entry had been completely rewritten from the ground up. We're talking about a fundamental disruption to how the entire world builds and accesses frontier intelligence. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The AI Sputnik Moment. To really grasp how the geopolitical tech landscape shifted, we've got to talk about Moonshot AI dropping the Kimi K3. This was the world's very first open 3 trillion class model. Releasing a model of this massive scale as open weights, that isn't just a technical flex, it is a profound geopolitical statement. Almost instantly, this single release effectively erased the American lead in AI. It proved, once and for all, that frontier-level intelligence wasn't going to be locked away in closed, proprietary Western ecosystems. All right, let's look under the hood. Section 2. Inside the Kimi 3. So historically, open-source models were kind of seen as the scrappy runners-up, right? They were good, but they just couldn't compete with the massive proprietary flagships. Well, Kimi K3 completely rewrites that script. We are talking about a staggering 2.8 trillion total parameters and a native 1 million token context window. That's huge. But the real secret sauce here is Kimi Delta attention. By pairing this hybrid linear attention mechanism with attention residuals, their engineers drastically slashed the memory required to process those long horizon tasks. And that brings us to how they actually run this absolute behemoth. Kimi K3 uses a highly optimized sparse mixture of experts, or MOE, architecture. So instead of lighting up all 2.8 trillion parameters for every single word, which would be insanely expensive, it activates just 16 out of 896 experts. That means for any given token, only 104 billion parameters are firing. It is an absolute masterpiece of efficiency. Which leads us straight to this number. 2.5x. That is the scaling efficiency Kimi K3 hit over its direct predecessor. By leaning into that sparse routing we just talked about, it delivers frontier-level smarts, but for a tiny fraction of the traditional cost. But you might be wondering, does this cheap open weights efficiency actually hold up in the real world? Oh, absolutely. Look at the benchmarks. On the private A8 briefcase agentic benchmark, which is basically the ultimate test for long-horizon knowledge work, it ranked number 2 globally. It actually beat out closed American flagships like GPT 5.6 Solmax, trailing only Claude Fable 5. Even crazier, it took the number 1 spot globally in real-world task automation and front-end coding execution. It literally crushed the proprietary competition. Which brings us to a fascinating geopolitical twist. Section 3, the sanctions backfire. And this brilliantly illustrates the crazy contrast over the past 18 months. On one side, you have the US pause. Western companies bogged down navigating safety coalitions, giant copyright lawsuits, and domestic antitrust red tape. And on the exact opposite side, you have this Chinese acceleration, a massive surge forward, driven entirely by scarcity and extreme optimization. See? U.S. export controls on advanced chips were meant to freeze Chinese AI progress, but ironically, they acted like an evolutionary pressure cooker. Because labs like Moonshot AI, DeepSeek, and Qwen were literally forbidden from relying on raw, brute force U.S. compute, they had no choice. They had to master token economy and sparse model routing. It proves a really vital point. In a digital economy, intellectual and algorithmic agility is always going to outpace manufacturing sanctions. The result of that pressure cooker? Well, by hosting these incredibly optimized open weights architectures on decentralized local clusters, cutting-edge cognitive compute now costs up to 5 times less per task than Western equivalents. 5 times. They didn't just catch up to the frontier, they entirely commoditized it. Let's shift gears and talk about the money. Section 4, the trillion-dollar bubble. This technological leap is a massive macroeconomic threat to Silicon Valley's capital structure. Over the past few years, tech giants and elite startups raised insane funding rounds, pushing valuations near or even above $1 trillion. And it was all based on one core premise: the promise of exclusive ownership over artificial general intelligence. But when a 3 trillion class open weights model is suddenly available to everyone, that monopoly premium completely blows up. Just compare the old closed-loop business model against this new open reality. The proprietary API relies on you sending data to vendor servers, dealing with rigid customization guardrails, and paying super high premium pricing. On the flip side, open weights give you sovereign, self-hosted, zero data retention, complete pipeline control, and it's billed at incredibly cheap mid-tier rates, like $3 per million inputs. It completely pulls the rug out from under those expensive closed ecosystems. So what is the game plan here? Section 5, Strategies for the New Era. With the landscape permanently altered, how should executives and investors actually navigate this? The biggest thing coming down the pipeline is the bifurcation of global intelligence over the next 3 to 5 years. We're looking at a split cognitive infrastructure. Western markets are probably going to stay tightly regulated, relying on closed API models with strict legal guardrails. Meanwhile, the rest of the developing world, and honestly, cost-sensitive enterprises everywhere, are going to rapidly adopt these cheap, highly capable Eastern open weights models. So the crucial point is, how do you adapt? The playbook boils down to 3 steps. 1. Pivot to roadmap ownership. 2. Invest in fine-tuning. And 3. Audit for bias. Let's break those down real quick. First up, taking control means you need to actively test and integrate models like Kimi K3 into your own serverless, zero data retention frameworks. You've got to escape vendor lock-in. Next, because the frontier weights are publicly accessible, you need to shift your enterprise value away from just tweaking prompts and actually start training these base models on your own industry's dark data. And finally, if you're deploying models born under different regulatory regimes, you absolutely have to implement local alignment layers. You need to ensure your internal safety filters and fact-checking match your local compliance rules without breaking the model's underlying reasoning. The Ai Sputnik moment has completely flattened the technological playing field. The weights are out there, the technology is commoditized, and hardware blockades just proved completely ineffective against software evolution, which leaves us with one final, pivotal question. In a world of open weights, is the monopoly on intelligence officially over? The future belongs to those who learn to adapt to this new open mesh. Thank you so much for exploring this massive paradigm shift with me today. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.